Hey everyone, we're at CyberPower Suite now at CES 2019, and if you don't normally watch SI videos, this one might still interest you because with the SI, some of the case manufacturers will make custom modified versions of their cases that you all know, like the P400 from Phanteks, for example, and build a version that you can't buy separately. Often it's sad because some of the custom versions are pretty damn good. So we're going to be looking at one of those today. It's a modified Phanteks P400 that CyberPower did. It's an exclusive CyberPower product and has some cool changes to the P400 that we would have liked to see in the original. Before that, this video is brought to you by the Gigabyte Z390 Aorus Master motherboard, which comes equipped with one of the more powerful Z390 VRMs for heavier overclocks on the new 9th gen Intel CPUs. The Aorus Master is also one of the few motherboards with a real heatsink this generation, featuring a mix of high surface area fins and looks-oriented cover blocks. Oh, and it's also got updated RGB illumination. Learn more at the link below. There's also, we have the Ragnarok here, and I wanted to point this out first because presently it's not in its complete form, but it will feature the Intel 28-core CPU. It was already disclosed a couple months ago at this point, the 3175X. So the idea of this ultimately would be 28-core CPU. You could do something like a dual Titan RTXs. It's customizable on their website, but the top of the top SKU is something like a $15,000, $20,000 PC. Dual Titan RTXs, water cooling, 28-core CPU, and the reason a 28-core CPU from Intel requires a special case is because if you saw the Asus board that we looked at in our recent video, it has 92 total power pins on it. So there are 4 8 pins, 2 6 pins, and 2 24 pins. I think that adds up to 92 off the top of my head, but it's got almost 100 power pins, so you kind of need 2 power supplies. The case here, the Ragnerok system with CyberPower's custom-built case, it fits dual power supply. You could either use one for, it's got a CyberPower button, so you could use one for a mini ITX system if you wanted to configure it that way on their site, or just use both to drive the Asus Dominus motherboard, which will be, I think, the primary motherboard featured for the 28-core CPU. So custom case is required. Maybe I would say the Lian Li 011 Dynamic finally has a use for 2 power supplies, but I think the case is probably too small for that motherboard. So just kind of interesting from a, this is something I won't likely buy standpoint of extremely high-end computer, but that's what it's looking like for the 28-core presence in SIs right now. The case itself is unique. So the front panel, despite having a panel here that looks sort of closed off, it has a massive gap in the middle, so there's plenty of airflow there. And also, it's kind of like you've seen this design with the Cougar Conqueror in the past, where there's a sort of open design for the side panels. Plenty of air can get through here. Plenty of air can get through this side. I mean, you can fit your whole hand in there. So airflow, not an issue for this case. And the rest of it just comes down to form factor being massive for something like a dual system setup or 28-core setup with the 14-inch by 14-inch motherboards that Asus is making right now, which is giant. So I think ATX is typically about 12 by 11 or 10 or something like that. So yeah, that's the Ragnarok. Pretty cool. They have a setup right now. There were some parts still in transit, so ends up with a semi-custom loop on it, and then 2 2080 Ti's with the model ultimately would be a bit higher end when it's ready on the site. And then the Phanteks case. This one is it's a CyberPower customized version of the P400. So the main changes are the body, the chassis, from the side, you'll recognize the P350X, and then from the front, it looks like the P400, except they've cut out a grille on the left and right side of the sort of the chamfered edge on the front panel of the chassis. And that was our biggest problem with the P400, other than the sort of DLC approach to it. But cutting out the holes for airflow, because it's already got some decent sized holes in the top and bottom, should help significantly with that. And the P400, as I understand it, is one of the best selling cases that on the market right now, I think, in general. So modified version from CyberPower. Unfortunately, if you like the P400 and you had similar airflow concerns as we did, if you want it, it's the P418, and you can buy it from CyberPower because it's an exclusive product, so not on Newegg or Amazon or anything like that, for just the case, unless you want to buy the whole system there. And then 2 more cases. So there's the Cube, which it's you probably recognize it looks a bit like the Omen, but smaller cube-shaped case. It's sitting on a stand. You can take it off the stand if you really wanted to and run it flat. Just sort of a unique form factor that we've seen once or twice, but it is more of a looker case. So the only criticism I have of that is somewhat resolved by moving the fans internally. So in the current configuration, the fans are mounted on the outside of the case. There's about 1 to 2 millimeters of space between the fan and the glass, so not much air can get through there. The fans aren't really doing anything, not enough static pressure. But if you move them internally, which there is space for, that would resolve the concern there. Otherwise, it is called the Cube. I think it's a Cyber Cube, not a CyberPower. It's a sister brand of CyberPower. And then finally, there's the Aluna cases. And these are just sort of cool. They're interesting. Again, it's another one of those you can't buy it DIY cases, which, like, I get it. I get why SIs need some custom cases. But also, every time we see these things, it's like, man, I wish that were available on the market standalone. The Aluna, though, so it's a closed-off front. Before anyone goes and posts comments about, like, oh, no airflow, the approach they're doing is side intake, which we've seen in the past. It successfully works. And actually, in order for side intake to work properly, you should have the front as closed as possible. Because if the front's open, what's going to happen is, not on this case, but the air will come in the side, and a lot of it's going to escape out the front before it ever gets to a component. But with the way the Aluna case is set up, in theory, you should be able to just blast it into the panel, and then it'll redirect towards wherever the next pressure system is, which is going to be the fans on the GPU or the CPU. So a pretty interesting case visually, and takes some design cues that we've seen recently from other cases. Thermaltake, for example, Lee, all going for side intake as a unique approach to cooling. But I think other than that, that should just about cover the CyberPower suite. So as always, thank you for watching. Subscribe for more. Go to patreon.com/gamersnexus to help us out directly, or store.gamersnexus.net. I'll see you all next time.